Hey everyone, I'm your host Adrian. We do content like this weekly, so hit the subscribe button and ring the bell to get notified. If you want more content like this, click the like button and please leave a comment. Thanks again for watching. Welcome everybody to today's Rupa University Lab class presented by Rupa University. The best way to order specialty lab work best way to learn about specialty lab work from industry experts. My name is Adrian Martinez, and as always, I will be your host for this afternoon. Today, we have a very, very special guest in Dr. Robert Silverman here with KBMO to discuss and show us how to use the FIT 176 test for leaky gut and food sensitivities. Before jumping in, a couple of quick housekeeping items. Everyone joining will be muted by default, but don't fret. If you do have any questions, please use that Q&A button down in the menu bar, and we'll host a live Q&A session at the end of the presentation. So just hold tight and we'll make sure that all your questions get answered at the end. Immediately following the Q&A, yours truly will show you exactly how to order this test directly on Rupa Health. And if you have to jump early, no worries at all. We record these sessions and we always will send them out to you once we've had the opportunity to do some edits to them, and they'll always be uploaded to rupauniversity.com within the coming days. Additionally, if you are a fan of this type of content, be sure to check out rupauniversity.com to get access to all of the previous sessions that we've done, including some really cool boot camps that we have coming up. With that, let's go ahead and jump right in. I'd like to introduce Dr. Robert Silverman. Dr. Silverman is a chiropractic doctor, clinical nutritionist, national, international speaker, author of Amazon's #1 bestseller, Inside Out Health, founder and CEO of Westchester Integrative Health Center. He has a Master's of Science in Human Nutrition and 5 other designations in clinical nutrition. The ACA Sports Council named Dr. Silverman Sports Chiropractor of the Year in 2015. Dr. Silverman is on the advisory board for the Functional Medicine University and is a seasoned health and wellness expert in both speaking circuits and the media. He's also the chief clinic consultant for KBMO Diagnostics, which is why we're here today, and holds a scientific board position with Nutraceuticals. With over 23 years of clinical experience, Dr. Silverman is a thought leader in his field and practice and frequently published author in peer-reviewed journals and other mainstream publications. His next book, which you better check out, Immune Reboot, is scheduled for release in October 2022. So coming up very, very soon. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Silverman. I will go ahead and let you take it from here.
Thanks so much for introducing me. Great job, Adrian. I'm excited to be here. I'm truly stoked to be able to share some insight on how to use this FIT 176 test. Now, this FIT, which is an acronym for food inflammation test, has really aided me in diagnosing leaky gut and food sensitivities. And I do like to couple them together. I'm a big believer that food sensitivities may be one of the hidden reasons for chronic inflammation. And the big takeaway on a food sensitivity, and I'll probably repeat this several times, is from the time to ingestion to the time to symptomology, it can be a 72-hour lag. When you compare that to a food allergy, you know you have a food allergy within that hour, swelling and everything of that nature. So looking at food sensitivities, there's no real way for the patient and or the practitioner to know that you have them without testing, which comes to an overriding theme as I lay the preview out. Let's all test and not guess. Leaky gut, 80% of our immune cells are in our gut. We've all heard that before. It's where our macro and micronutrients are absorbed. Testing the idea and conceptualizing leaky gut with food sensitivities and asking us this far-reaching question: was it a food sensitivity, then leaky gut? Was it a leaky gut, then food sensitivities? Well, you'll see a slide coming up we're determining whether it's the chicken or the egg. Nevertheless, let's dig in and let's have some fun. Alessio Fasano, I mentioned him several times. He actually found the protein Zonulin back in 2000. Hippocrates, 2,500 years ago, approximately said all disease begins in the gut. 2,500 years later, Alessio Fasano said all disease begins in the leaky gut. A factoid: 72% of US adults say they have experienced GI symptoms a few times a month or more. So clearly 3 out of 4 Americans are having an issue. Got some other data here. 74% of participants have lived with their GI symptoms for more than 6 months, and 56% of those with GI problems have not spoken with their primary care physician. So the point is, most people have got problems, yet they're not talking with their primary care. So the functional medicine practitioners, functional nutritional practitioners really are the ones that need to take that mantle and step forward. Some gut factoids. 90% of the scientific literature describing the microbiome has been published in the last 5 years and growing. I think we're tipping the iceberg, if you will. Many different data is indicated, but the top number I've seen is 100 trillion microbe cells in the body. They outnumber human cells 10 to 1. Humans, we're 90% bacteria at the cellular level. Unfortunately, most physicians don't look at the bacteria. They look at the other 10 cells. And I believe it's a very myopic, narrow view when you do that. When you include genetics, which is 99% of DNA is bacteria, many of the drugs and many of the concerns are pointed at, antibiotics and killing the bacteria. You're seeing that genetics typically looks at the DNA that we inherit and not the 99% in the gut bacteria. Genetic testing is strong, but genetic testing, again, needs to be very pointed. So for me, what's the problem? Well, most Americans are unhealthy. I can tell you that the average American consumes 160 pounds of sugar per year, 146 pounds of wheat. But the basic idea is I think that we're overpopulating the population with antibiotics. 80% of the population is getting their antibiotics from livestock. That equates to almost 270 million prescriptions per year in humans. The CDC has said conservatively that 30% of antibiotic prescriptions are unnecessary, and over 50% of hospital patients receive antibiotics. 52% of patients going into the hospital were given an antibiotic before getting a positive COVID test. Now, we all know that COVID, not to go on an exit ramp here, COVID is obviously a virus. Antibiotics actually deplete your gut. They kill your microbes in that they don't allow any of the nutrients that I listed, B vitamins, vitamin K. So damaging the gut is really deleterious to people's overall health. Once again, the chronic driver of chronic disease is silent inflammation. I'm a big proponent that silent inflammation is a cause of chronic diseases. One of the contributory factors is adipose tissue. Fat cells are depositories for toxins. But the bottom line here is, and it's an overriding theme, if you will, it's one of my capstone takeaways. If your gut is not healthy, you're not healthy. So let's look at some triggers of increased gut permeability. We've talked about antibiotics before. Acid blocking drugs, PPIs, they're overused. Do you know that you're supposed to take a PPI for 4 to 6 weeks, not months, not years, not decades? So with the overuse of PPIs, there's been a strong correlation with that use with leaky gut, increased food sensitivities, and damage to the blood-brain barrier. NSAIDs, non-steroid anti-inflammatories, they do decrease pain, but they impair healing. NSAIDs, Advil, ibuprofen, and Aleve, all are decreasing pain again, but they are, once again, not allowing for healing. Nutraceuticals decrease pain but promote healing. Which do you want to use? Getting back to the list, heavy metal exposure, environmental toxins, cesarean births also very damaging to gut permeability. Concussion is a factoid. 60% of people who have concussion either have leaky gut or small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. Liver toxicity, bidirectional with the gut. Whatever you do to your gut, you do to your liver. Whatever you do to your liver, you do to your gut. Gut dysbiosis, the unleveling of good and bad bacteria. It's not 51% to have a good gut ecosystem. It's 85.1% to avoid gut dysbiosis. And of course, food sensitivities, which we're going to get a little granular in a few slides. Yeast and bacterial overgrowth, most commonly Candida, chronic stress, sleep deprivation, chronic inflammation, alcohol, gluten, which means glue, dairy, sugar, artificial sweeteners, and one of the hidden gems, food additives and emulsifiers. To piggyback on that food additive emulsifier, data indicates that additives and emulsifiers actually create an inflammatory process in the gut. So when you select certain food additives, essentially what you're going to get is a disruption to the mucosal barrier, an ingestion of microorganisms, an increase of pro-inflammatory cytokines like TNF-alpha, interleukin-2, interleukin-10, and the big guy, interleukin-6, all leading to localized inflammation. Now, we know whatever passes the gut causes localized inflammation. It can lead to systemic inflammation because the body's all interconnected, and ultimately can lead to autoimmunity. People don't talk about fungi enough. Like I referred before, it's an ecosystem. It's a neighborhood, if you will. So we've got a lot of components going on. Fungi actually thrive in a healthy gut. but they can also cause intestinal damage. They can lead to irritable bowel disease. So the immune system is needed to keep fungi in check. When the system is off, disease can ensue. Candida elicits a very strong immune response. You will see in the FIT test, in the gut barrier panel, we now test for Candida. Candida's invasions form intestinal damage that actually resembles IBD. Maybe my favorite slide. I could probably spend the whole presentation just on my gut matrix. As I said before, 80% of your immune cells are in your gut. It's where your macro and micronutrients are absorbed. The gut is the epicenter of your health. For me, no good gut health, not good health. Now, when I say the word gut, what am I referring to? Well, I'm talking to the small and the large intestine. The small intestine, when it's named, is really a misnomer. It's extremely long and large. It averages anywhere from 20 to 52 feet, and the average American has it about 22 feet. The reason they call it small in comparison to the large intestine is it's 1 inch in diameter versus the large intestine, which is 2.5 inches. The small intestine also has a very thin epithelial lining. As a matter of fact, it has the thickness of a wet paper towel. Yet if you unravel your small intestine, it has the surface area of a tennis to a basketball court. Whereas when you look at the large intestine, it has a triple layer epithelial cell where most bacteria should live and lie. The small intestine's purpose, which should be semi-permeable, is to allow small digested food particles, water, food, vitamins and minerals, and on occasion open up to allow viruses and pathogens to get tested by your immune system. Think of your gut as a screen door. Everybody's seen a screen door. What does a screen door allow? Well, it has little holes which allow air to go in and out. However, when you have a hole in that screen door, where that screen door, like your gut, is no longer in its pristine condition and it becomes too permeable, things can pass that shouldn't pass, like large undigested food particles, which usually are a key stimulant to inflammation. As you see from the slide, you've got the GI tract communicating with the liver. You have a toxic and chemical overload, liver dysfunction. Again, it's bidirectional. Leaky gut has shown to have an increase in blood sugar problems, insulin resistance, and insulin issues, body composition, and leaky gut leads you down a path of autoimmunity. No surprise that you see the thyroid there. People come in all the time and say, hey, my thyroid's a problem. I heard this and I heard that. What's stopping us from using that FIT test, seeing if there's food sensitivities, and also seeing on that gut barrier panel if there's a leaky gut, since leaky gut could be one of the main culprits for autoimmunity. In addition, chiropractors, naturopaths, manual therapists, leaky gut leads you to an overexpression of cytokines. Cytokine storm syndrome leads you down a path of musculoskeletal system failures, arthritis, and joint pain. And leaky gut also releases MMPSs, matrix metalloproteinases, your body's own proteolytic enzymes that release at the time of damage to the gut, which eat fibrocartilage. Fibrocartilage, like your disc, there's a gut to disc axis. So me having a chiropractic background, a lot of people come in with lower back pain. I then institute this as a staple, this being the FIT 176 gut barrier test. So let's take a look at, if you will, at this particular PowerPoint. Hopefully this is vivifying for you. You've got a healthy cell junction. Your tight junctions are in place. They're nice and tight. You've got your microvilli, your finger-like projections, which have digestive enzymes, which grab nutrients. The white balls depict small digested food particles. The blue balls depict large undigested food particles. And when the gut is in its perfect, pristine condition, all that's passing through are the small digestible food particles. The large ones are being pushed to the large intestines to get eliminated. So now you're looking at a slide that has damaged cell junctions. Those cell junctions, which we're going to talk about, zonulin and occludin, are now not tight junctions. They're actually loose junctions, and there's no microvilli that's damaged. So that shaggy carpet went to a flat tile floor. You're seeing both small and large digestible food particles go through. So you could see how detrimental a leaky gut could be to one's overall health, putting the immune system on an alarm. Alessio Fasano, I saw him in Las Vegas, and he said, the gut is not Vegas. Whatever happens in the gut doesn't stay in the gut. So there's also a gut to brain axis, which was on my Dr. Rob's gut matrix. Let's get to the root cause of the broken brain. Some things I love to tell all my patients: gut on fire means brain on fire. Brain on fire means gut on fire. Do you get gas and bloating after you eat? Well, if you do, you have a digestion problem and a gut problem. Do you get brain fog about 45 minutes after you eat? Well, if you do, you may have a blood-brain barrier problem. Whatever you do to your gut, you do to your brain. So that said, why isn't there any pain? There's no pain fibers in your intestinal tract, and there are no pain receptors in your brain. So this symptomology indicates what damage is done to those particular organ systems. Remember, the gut to brain, I call that the superhighway to health. So here's a used slide. People have seen this one before. On the left side, we have, again, the tight junctions in position. They're tight. They're in, again, I use the term intact, pristine condition. On the right, you have leaky and inflamed. In that, you see the gluten microorganisms and toxins get through. They burrow their way through the mucosal membrane cells. They elicit an immune response once you get into the bloodstream, IgG, which we'll talk about, IgA, IgM, because B and T cells were released, and you have nutrient malabsorption, autoimmunity, food sensitivity increase, blood-brain barrier breach, and systemic inflammation. What about the gut talking to the brain? Well, here we've got Alzheimer's. So this figure really depicts how gut dysbiosis can lead you down a path of Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's has an autoimmune component, but many of the Alzheimer's issues, like in many neurodegenerative diseases, there's a gut issue. So in this particular one, they're depicting dysbiosis. Other articles have talked about the release of LPS, lipopolysaccharide, and endotoxin, which allows amyloids to be released, amyloid plaquing. So in Alzheimer's, even though the end result is in the brain, a strong contributing component to Alzheimer's disease is in the gut. The gut and Parkinson's disease, that's clearly a bidirectional communication between the brain and the gut and in the brain. Now, Parkinson's is different than Alzheimer's, as we all know, but it is classified as a definitive autoimmune condition. Now, what's very interesting about Parkinson's, and you can look on it in the slide, it's in the right corner, is something called an NP, which is a neuropod. So Parkinson's actually utilizes the vagus nerve to communicate with the gut and the brain. Vagus nerve, cranial nerve number 10, the great wanderer, a long meandering nerve that goes through the body. It's the captain of the ship of the parasympathetic nervous system. It's been nicknamed, its sobriquet is rest and digest, wine and dine, because that parasympathetic calms you down. And it's a critical element in overall digestion. That said, it's able to go from the medulla oblongata, and every time I say medulla oblongata, I think of the water boy. I mean, I know I've said it a million times, and patients have said to me, had you seen that part of the movie? So the medulla oblongata down through the transverse colon, but it's able to sense what's in the transverse colon because of the neuropod. So here is your intestine. This is the outside of your intestine. Here's the inside. There's this little clip called a neuropod. The vagus nerve connects to the neuropod and can sense what's going on in the microbiome and the microbiota. So what's going on in that ecosystem, hopefully with a good barrier system, is a critical element to the communication. It has been said that bacteria that can get through the intestinal epithelium barrier can jump on the vagus nerve and travel to the brain. Molecular mimicry. It's one of the reasons that we have autoimmunity. It means that molecules mimic. Now, essentially, foods like gluten and dairy and many other foods have something called a protein sequence. The protein sequences of food are very similar to protein sequences in structures. So foreign can look like self. That said, foreign looking like self, the immune system gets confused and starts to attack itself. Hence, we call that autoimmunity. Rheumatoid arthritis, thyroid, even now osteoarthritis, again, talking from a musculoskeletal line, is autoimmunity. So what's my take on food sensitivities on health? Well, number one, they'll cause a systemic inflammatory response. Skin reactions are part of the immune system. You'll have joint pain. So let's stop right there. Joint pain, muscle pain, GI, brain fog. So if your patient comes in with brain fog, they come in with GI symptoms, it could be very simply food sensitivities. Again, if you're in a musculoskeletal line, joint pain, muscle pain, and tightness, It could be conceivably from food sensitivities. Anxiety, depression, and mood. Believe it or not, that's probably the number one complaint of food sensitivities. Neurodegeneration, autoimmune issues, fatigue, body composition issues. So let's look at the overall view of food sensitivities. They're related to, and I believe this is truly conservative, 100 million people worldwide. However, the prevalence has grown greatly in the last few years, 50% in adults, 70% in children. The symptomology is wide and varied. 90% of the sensitivities are in 8 selected food groups. Probably no surprise to anybody here. Milk, soy, eggs, wheat, peanuts, tree nuts, fish, and shellfish. Delayed food sensitivities, as I said before, can be delayed from the time of ingestion to the time that symptomology shows. That can be up to 72 hours. 3 days, everybody. 3 days. I can't tell you what I ate 3 days ago. Again, how am I going to be able to diagnose it? Once again, you want to test and not guess when it comes to food sensitivities. Where KBMO can really hang its hat on is it's testing for delayed food sensitivities because they're looking at the full composite of IgGs, 1 through 4. Many companies do IgG 1 through 2. The key in that IgG 1 through 4 is IgG3 is testing for what we call the complement inflammatory pathway, those immune complexes that activate complement. So again, let's dive food allergy versus food sensitivity. Food sensitivity is IgG, delayed reaction, response is slow, creates inflammatory cascade. You really want to do a blood test for the food protein, and it's really hard to determine which is the culprit without a test. I'm a big believer that part of diagnosis is when you want to detect. You got to put your Sherlock Holmes hat on, get your big microscope, take a look, and what do you want to detect? Well, you want to detect which are the triggers, and you want to remove these triggers. Triggers like proteins, infections, toxins, chemicals, and pathogens. In addition to that, you want to take the next step and you want to detect the barriers, because if the barriers are leaky, if you will, like your gut and or your blood-brain barrier and or your skin, you want to repair them. And lastly, you want to be able to allow the body to communicate. The body's an interconnected organisms. It communicates. Health to me is, if you will, a mellifluous sounding soliloquy. Whereas disease, unhealth, obviously, is like a junior high school band without a conductor. It just doesn't sound all that well. It's not communicating well. So many people ask, and here's a takeaway. Here is a salient point. The FIT test, why should practitioners use it? Real simply, you are testing for food sensitivities, inflammation, and gut permeability all in one test. So you're getting 3 for 1. Food sensitivities, inflammation, and gut permeability. So when do providers use the FIT test? So which patients should you do it? Well, let's get that list right up here. Well, if a patient's struggling to lose weight, it really could be as simple as they have a leaky gut or they're inflamed from food sensitivities, obviously autoimmune disease, migraines, screamer, especially gluten. And one thing I'm going to tell you about gluten is that I tell all my patients to go gluten-free no matter what. And we can, if you have a question on that, feel free. I'd love to give a little bit of a dissertation on that. If you take away gluten, you're going to see a drastic change in migraines. Anybody has thyroid problems, arthritis, brain fog, fatigue, and any kind of male or female problems could be related, and you may want to use the FIT test. And clearly digestive gut issues and skin problems. Here are the top 20 foods positive for sensitivities. Some of these were a little surprising in that they were almonds, bananas, beef, brewer's yeast, candida, casein, chicken, corn, cow's milk, egg white, egg yolk, gluten, peanut, pineapple, salmon, shrimp, soybean, tomato, white potato, and whole wheat. So let's take a look at a basic client report. Here's what I like about the client report. Here's what I like as a doctor. It's got the colors. It makes it easy. You know, we get these long, lengthy reports that we have to decipher and disseminate. And it's hard for the doc to really understand in certain instances. Forget the patient knowing. It's obvious. Take a look. The red, that's the worst. Beaming red. Yellow's number 2. Excuse me. Orange, number 2. Yellow, number 3, and lime. So the top number is a 4. So you'll see a 4 with the red. You'll see a 3 with an orange. You'll see a 2 with a yellow and a 1 with a lime. The green, you're cool. It's copacetic. It speaks volumes to the patient. And then they also test for some food additives like MSG and phosphobate 80, red, number 33. And the real question, and people have asked me, Why do people ask about chemical additives? Real simple. Chemical additives lead you down a slippery slope of leaky gut. We spend a lot of time on this. This is really exciting. In this, you're not only measuring the upstream in terms of exposure to IgG 1 through 4, but also the downstream, the alternative pathway, which was pointed out when the complement is activated, leading to inflammation and symptoms. All right, let's break this down real easy. When you look at number 10 and number 12, they're really explicit because cytokines, killer T cells, and antibodies induce the autoimmune process targeting intestinal epithelial cells. So essentially, when you stimulate the complement, you're getting inflammation, you're getting symptoms. Huge takeaway here. Just look at the right versus the left side. It's your right and your left. Look at the difference in the lamina propria, how much smaller it is. Well, when you have long-standing inflammation and damage to the gut, you can get autoimmunity at the gut. So when people say, how long do you fix it? It really depends on their status. How many foods are they sensitive to? What does their gut barrier panel look like? So the FIT test technology showing enhanced sensitivity, conventional conjugate generates only one signal, whereas the FIT test enhanced conjugate generates two specific signals. So it's just more sensitive than any of the other tests that I've used in my office. So let's go through the FIT test, why providers use it. It's this dual pathway measurement. Number one, it stimulates the innate immunity, which measures the complement C3D, inflammation. Just had a conversation with a bunch of docs yesterday. So complement is an inflammatory pathway, but which molecule, which time in the complement pathway is most inflammatory? The most stable inflammatory molecule is C3D, because when you get to C5D, it becomes lytic and lysis comes in, it doesn't stay there. So stability, if you have C3D elevated, you've got inflammation. Acquired immunity, adaptive, specific immunity, measures antibodies, IgG 1 through 4. So you're testing for immune complexes. Immune complexes that cause inflammation are truly a lot of underlying problems for many conditions that I see on a day-to-day basis. So what about a defective epithelial barrier linked to a myriad of chronic diseases like allergies, food sensitivities, IBD, even celiac, diseases that are attributed to changes in this microbiome, obviously that ecosystem in the gut, autoimmune, metabolic, and neurodegenerative diseases. So people ask, why do you test for increased intestinal permeability? Can't we just assume everybody has a leaky gut? Well, I'd love to, but the fact is that's not necessarily the case. Not everybody has a leaky gut. Now, you're going to treat somebody with a leaky gut and a food sensitivity different than someone that just has a need to maintain good or relatively good gut health or just populate with some pre and probiotics. So it's a great baseline measurement. More so than that, it will tell you where you're at. Again, testing and not guessing. I'm a big proponent of having that conversation with the patient, showing the patient the test. So if I go to my primary care physician, he does all these vital tests, blood pressure, temperature, etc. He also always wants blood serum. It's a standard bearer. He weighs me, things of that nature. For me, one of the standard bearers in my office, whether I'm doing chiropractic, functional medicine, or the combination of the two, which I strongly suggest for any chiropractor or naturopath listening, is to test for gut health. Where is the number one source of toxins in our world? Well, you can make the case that it's air. We all have to breathe, but it's probably food. Think of all the tonnage of food that we consume in a lifetime. Getting back to why test for intestinal permeability, more compliance and motivation. One, again, it's a starting point because I believe in testing, treating, and reassessing. So assess, treat, and reassess. And more so than that, sometimes, typically though, the symptomology will abate quicker than the function will come back. However, there are times where it's been reversed, and in that invert, you can then say, the test shows you're getting better, we just need a little bit more time. It's a very effective means is using a standard bearer because he always goes to the patient. They always ask, because I've surveyed my patients and I've lectured with other docs. The patients want to know, how do you know? And this is one way to really know. But the question is, and I try not to stay up at nights, but the question is it food sensitivities or a leaky gut? chicken or the egg, which came first? Well, guess what? The gut barrier panel will tell you where you are now, and that's what we like to do. Where are you now? So here's the new gut barrier panel by KBMO associated with their FIT test. So it tests for IgG 1 through 4 and C3d. So in this instance, it's negative for Candida. You're also testing for IgA 1 and 2 critically. IgA is a secretory. It's typically at the gut level, secretory, and also at the lung. And it happens to be in this mock test negative for Candida. However, also testing IgG 1 through 4 CD3 and IgG A1 through 2, you've got Zonulin, and we're going to get into Zonulin now. It's both positive for those two markers and occludin also. So that gut barrier panel is now allowed with the FIT 132, food sensitivities 132, plus the FIT 176. I personally only use the 176. So let's go into a little bit more details. IgA, as we all know, it's an antibody, plays a role in immune function of mucous membranes. Secretory IgA serves as the first line of defense in protecting the intestinal epithelium from enteric toxins and pathogenic microorganisms. IgA comprises 85% of the IgA1 concentration. IgA shows a good immune response to protein enzymes and LPS, lipopolysaccharide. 2 represents 15% and shows the gastrointestinal's attempt to fight LPS antigens. So clearly the combination is better than doing singular. And you should always ask, are you doing IgA1 or IgA2? You really want to do 1 and 2. Candida, old song that my sister used to make me listen to. It's a type of yeast that lies in small amounts in different parts of your body, mouth, skin, and predominantly in the gut. When the environment is right, yeast can multiply and grow out of control. Grows when good bacteria is suppressed or immune system is weakened. Going back to that earlier slide, remember the immune system keeps down the Candida. Zonulin is a protein that can open tight junctions. Gliadin, which is a protein from gluten and intestinal bacteria, are the main triggers for zonulin release. A brief overview of zonulin, protein that's synthesized in intestinal and liver cells. It's a key biomarker for intestinal permeability, only reversible regulator of intestinal permeability. Elevated levels of zonulin associated with autoimmune disease, glucose intolerance, celiac, inflammatory bowel, obesity, non-celiac gluten sensitivity, rheumatoid arthritis, type 1 diabetes, and more. A great way to test for leaky gut is zonulin. This test in the FIT, the gut barrier test with the FIT 176, this was formulated by Alessio Fasano in zonulin. He found out that zonulin increased at the time of excessive gluten ingestion. He found zonulin increased at the time of excessive inflammation, infection. And zonulin is a biomarker. There's also occludin, and I'm going to dive the two because there's a little confusion. Occludin is the first transmembrane protein of the epithelial tight junction to be discovered. 15 years of evidence has indicated occludin plays an important role in the regulation of tight junction integrity. Zonulin is function. Occludin is structure. Here's your tight junction. These are your two epithelial cells coming together. My fingers are the tight junction. There's a distinctive pull. There's a distinctive pull when zonulin's increased. And here's the pull. Pulling on those fibers. So if we go back, you see those fibers getting pulled apart. These fibers are actually occludin. So that pull is zonulin. That's function. It elevates during the day. However, when it breaks, that's an elevation of occludin. And that's why you need zonulin with occludin. The test just came out today. So let me give you a clinical gem. Occludin is essential in tight junction stability and barrier function. Together, zonulin and occludin both function as the gatekeepers of tight junctions when they function together. So we love the zonulin test. We love zonulin with occludin to really express, was there a structural damage? Taking a look at COVID, believe it or not, there was an increase in COVID in tight junction permeability when COVID was severe. Steep increase in zonulin, LPS, and occludin were also elevated. What's fascinating, as we all know, the virus sheds through the gut. So if you had a leaky gut, you were more susceptible to the virus having a secondary tissue attack and hyperinflammation. Speaking to that, COVID also caused leaky gut. So the more severe COVIDs were from gut permeability or increased gut permeability. Now, COVID's impact in the GI was as follows: the loss of diversity, loss of beneficial bacteria, expansion of pro-inflammatory bacteria, expansion of yeast, increased incidence of leaky gut, and leaky gut in COVID had led to an increased incidence of heart disease. So for me, one of the first questions I ask everybody, and I happen to do a lot of COVID, I'm in Westchester County in New York, so we were hit first March of 2020. I've really relied on this test as a gut barrier marker to see what residual adverse effect COVID may have had on their gut barrier. So some of the problems with zonulin protein that's out there, never going to get negative. We're always going to use contrast to lead to persuasion. Cross-reactivity. Many people actually use haptoglobin and perpidine proteins. They don't actually test for true zonulin. Sample size, you could have serum and or fecal matter. But when you're looking at the zonulin antibody, we're eliminating the cross-reactivity because KBMO is using a unique recombinant zonulin protein that eliminates haptoglobin and perpidine. The positivity rate matches the study that Fasano did, and we found out that serum is extremely effective, whether it's a blood serum or a spot. Use the spot here, is extremely effective. Fecal testing is not very effective for zonulin, so the serum and or the blood spot are. And the NIH has said that blood spots are virtually as accurate, especially in food sensitivities. So here's some KBMO fit conclusions. Number one, measures 176 different foods, colorings, and additives. It's a dual pathway detection technology, testing for IgG and complement. The complement generates inflammation. Remember, it's testing for the most stable inflammatory marker, C3d. It also has, it starred an anti-zonulin antibody, which is a key marker of gut permeability, and a unique gut barrier panel is also now included. Excellent clinical outcomes is backed by IRB-approved clinical studies. I'll show you a slide right there, and the finger stick makes it quick and easy to obtain the sample size. Lastly, when it comes to zonulin, higher levels are associated with waist circumference, higher blood pressure, fasting glucose, and an increase in metabolic diseases. So here is the new test. You've got your FIT test on your left, your 176, your additives, etc. And on the right side, you have your gut barrier panel. So it's color coordinated. Green means go, red means stop. You have your different numbers on the left. Patients see this, it becomes evocative for them. So very quickly, as I get towards the finish line, the clinical studies. Essentially, clinical study was done on the FIT test. So they tested before elimination and tested after eliminating the foods. Look at the precipitous drop in the number of sensitivities reported and the severity score once you took away the foods. In addition to that, look at the symptomology changes from the left to the right side. Significant improvement in symptoms observed after the elimination diet was implemented. Symptoms like and complaints, memory, concentration, anxiety, mood, and depression, they're at the top of the list. Then comes bloating in stomach, fatigue, sleepless insomnia, joint pain, stiffness, and sweating, muscle aches, craving sugars, etc. And at the bottom, believe it or not, is really sinus, thyroid, eczema, drowsiness, and PMS. So this doc actually did a study evaluating the health benefits and outcomes of IBS and food sensitivities using the FIT test IG1 through 4 and the C3d immune complexes. Now, we all know that serum tests are quite objective. So here we had serum test on an IBD severity score. You had the intervention group and the control group. Look at the difference in the intervention group on a scale of abdominal pain, days, bloating, and bowel habits. 3 times the difference from the intervention group to the control group. Homocysteine, using those blood serums that are objective that I alluded to previously. The control group versus interval group. Unfortunately, the control group went up. The intervention group went down. Homocysteine is typically a marker of not only stroke and inflammation, but the ability to absorb B vitamins. Remember, gut health enables you to absorb vitamins and minerals. And lastly, CRP, C-reactive protein. You see a distinctive 5-to-1 change between the intervention group and the control group when you took out the foods that were isolated to be sensitive to the individuals. So again, let's look at clinical outcomes in IBS greatly improve when using the FIT test. The conclusion was clinical outcomes for IBS greatly improve when using FIT test to predict food sensitivities. The reason that we want to test for the gut, we want to look at the barrier. We live in a gut-busting world. Lastly, I've told you the problem. I've got a few quick minutes to give you the solution. Number one, in my Super 7R action plan, which you'll see in my upcoming book, Immune Reboot, the first R that we're going to adhere to is to reset. In that, you're going to reset your diet, your lifestyle, and your mindset. It's real simple. No gluten, no dairy. So GPS, DNA, they're acronyms I use. No gluten, no processed food, no sugar, DNA, no dairy, no nicotine, no artificial sweetness, no vegetable oils, no deep frying foods. In addition, you're going to remove. This is where you're going to take out your food sensitivities because they are going to cause inflammation. So you're going to remove food sensitivities here. You're also going to do a detox. Old school was, do I decide in functional medicine, do I do gut or do I do liver first? I've decided to unite the two. It's most synergistic. By doing both at the same time, you're going to have a good concert of health. Removing unwanted pathogens, oregano oil, berberine, garlic, serum bovine immunoglobulin, and the such to take out the antigens. Replace with what? Replace with needed digestive enzymes, pancreatic enzymes, stomach acid, and increase bile flow, probably a hidden gem. The secret sauce to dealing with people with leaky gut is to increase that bile flow. The second R, which will go back a step, the remove, and this R, the regenerate, the second and the fourth, they're probably the two most important R's we could talk about. You're going to regenerate damaged intestinal mucosal. This is when you're going to use your plethora of different nutrients. Those nutrients should have a pleiotropic effect in that they want to help heal and seal the gut lining and create an anti-inflammatory environment inside the gut. Taking the next step, going into reinoculation with quality pre and probiotics. Don't just take a probiotic. Take a probiotic with a prebiotic. You got to feed the probiotic. You have a right prebiotic to feed the probiotic. You can then make a postbiotic, like a short-chain fatty acid, leaving a residue of butyrate, being that gold medal winner. So prebiotic feeds a probiotic. Reintroduce. And here's a great point. Reintroduce what? Reintroduce certain foods. This is the time that you have to make the decision to test or not again. I usually retest. My rule of thumb is if they have more than 5 food sensitivities to start, retest it. If they have less than 5, you can then do a reintroduction program, each food 3 times, each food, see if there's a symptomology one at a time over a 3-day period. It's about 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, patient loses interest. If it's over 5, you have to reintroduce. I can honestly say virtually nobody who I've tested has, when you test 176 foods, and remember, I'm testing people who I think have a gut issue, almost everybody, high 90 percentiles, usually have more than 5 foods that they're sensitive to. And the last step, retain. You got your health. You don't want to give up your health. So you want to retain your health by staying on a good lifestyle, a low processed food carbohydrate diet, good quality fats, they're essential fats, they're essential amino acids, protein. Try and get your steps in, some weight resistance, and a good supplemental program like a multivitamin, multi-mineral, fish oil, vitamin D3 with K2, probiotic, and a good greens drink. Just quickly, if you have Candida, here's some interesting supplementation: caprylic acid, oregano oil I use, berberine, garlic, SBI. And the probiotic you would use with Candida would be a lactobacillus strain because it produces lactic acid and other fungal compounds. This lowers in the gut, the pH in the gut, and makes the environment less enjoyable or hospitable for Candida. Zonulin and occludin, a lot of the things we said before, zinc carnosine, which help heals the stability and formation in tight junction growth, L-glutamine, collagen peptides, curcumin, glucosamine HCl, and the probiotic would be B. longum. We know the most effective clinical outcomes across all disease spectrums can result from the normalization of gut function. I always like to start with a quote, like to end with a quote. Vincent van Gogh once said, Your profession is not what brings home your weekly paycheck. Your profession is what you put on earth to do with such passion and such intensity that it becomes spiritual in calling. And I know you wouldn't be on this webinar and using lab testing and functional medicine if it wasn't your mantra, without question. Adrian was nice enough to mention my book. It's coming out at the end of next month. It's been a bear working on it. It's 10-chapter, fully paged book. It's got all the things you would need to really help you reboot your immune system. It's called Immune Reboot, a guide to maximizing immunity, restoring gut health, and optimizing vitality. I see the question and answers really populating. If anybody has any questions, feel free. If you need to contact me or you want to follow for the exact release of the book, there's my social media handles. And Adrian, I know you're going to handle the questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Dr. Silverman, that was fantastic. You absolutely lived up to our previous conversation. So thank you so much for just that incredibly insightful presentation. Yeah, you're right. We see the chats popping off. So hopefully we have enough time to go through all of them because there's some long ones in here, but let's just go ahead and jump right in. So you may have covered this, but this person wants to know if someone has been avoiding dairy products for a month and takes the FIT test, would the results be affected, possibly showing misleading results?
Best question to start with, because that's a question I get all the time. It's an FAQ. So a month wouldn't be enough time. Now, there are some tests that say if you're sensitive, eat the food the day before. I don't buy it. So I would say test and let's see where it's at. Obviously, if you take it, it could throw the test off. So I don't think you have to eat the food to see if you're sensitive to it. Great test. Now, incidentally, and I know I said it, and please, everybody from the Midwest, don't kill me. I am not a dairy fan. I'm a big believer, as I said before, no gluten and no dairy. And they're just very high inflammatory foods, and there are a lot of other reasons why. And maybe we can come back and do a webinar on that.
Absolutely. I mean, as an Italian living that life in New York, how do you avoid that gluten is a question that we can talk about some other time.
There's a lot of good gluten-free options now, but I know that a couple of people are throwing the harpoons at me.
So the next question we got is, how is it that those that have severe food sensitivities, mast cell activation syndrome, extreme reactivities can tolerate chicken, for example? Foods like this require far more acid to break down and are larger proteins by size relative to vegetables, for example. They'd expect there be more reactivity in these cases, not less.
I'm pausing for a second. I agree. I don't have a great answer why not. However, chicken comes up a lot. Now, one thing about the test, when we say chicken, understand that they're testing organic foods. So now when you're testing a non-organic or consuming a non-organic food, what else has infiltrated? What else has that animal eaten? What other soil has that animal or poultry or vegetable been exposed to? So that's why you're going to see a lot of these variabilities in the tests. So I hope that gave you a little insight.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you suggest to test for if a patient was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease a few months ago? You speak about prevention, but what do you suggest once someone has been diagnosed?
Okay, so for something like that, I would use a litany. And yeah, I would definitely do the food sensitivities in the gut barrier. You want to see what's going on in the gut. You also want to see if they're an APOE4. It may be a little late. APOE4, and you could probably tell them where they can get that, would show that they have a predisposition to Alzheimer's and possibly test the blood-brain barrier. It has been portended that a leaky gut and damage to the blood-brain barrier may be that early warning sign for Alzheimer's.
You may have covered this as well, but what supplements do you recommend to heal leaky guts in addition to avoiding the triggered foods?
Sure. So formulations for, again, it would be in the R's, but in the remove phase, it would be oregano oil, berberine, garlic, serum bovine immunoglobulin, good quality digestive enzymes in the third, the replace, in that it would be pancreatic enzymes, stomach acids, and increased bile flow. The rejuvenation, that's where I use the word plethora of different nutrients. There would be a ton, the glucosamine HCl, the NAG, the omega-3 fatty acids, vitamin D, collagen proteins and such. pre and probiotics in the fifth. And again, your staples throughout, your omega-3s, your vitamin D. By the way, every cell in your body has a receptor for omega-3s and vitamin D. So there is no real excuse not to take those.
Perfect. What do you do with the foods that come out red or orange for a patient, but they've actually never eaten them?
Isn't it funny? That's it. I've never eaten that. I can't believe that. I get that all the time. Good. Well, then that's one less thing that they have to remove from their diet. Yeah. So it'll be a real interesting thing when you retest to see, are they still sensitive to that particular food? And then the key is as I said before, you got to test it, but then you got to put in the program where we talked about like the 7R. And if anybody wants more information on the 7R, I'm going to be working with Rupa. I'm happy to share some things. We'll figure it out, Adrian. Okay.
Absolutely.
But you'll probably see an outcome, and that's a great little case study right there.
What do you do to treat systemic candidas?
I went because, first of all, I'm happy that they test for candida, because candida leads to dysbiosis. Candida can lead to IBD. Candida can be hidden, and not enough of the tests, not enough people test for candida. And that's why I like it. Candida, zonulin, and occludin, and then you got the food sensitivities through the whole thing. Candida is going to take some time. Again, I listed those. I'm going to go back. There's your protocol. So you can utilize all of those, put those in, and I think you'll get a great outcome.
Perfect. You're getting a lot of love in the chat right now, by the way, Dr. Silverman.
I should really turn on the chat, but for some reason I'm unable to on my laptop. So
no,
take a shot, send it to me later.
Yeah,
Thanks, guys.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it. Hey, if you had a good time, give me a thumbs up.
There we
Adrian
go. Yeah, we'll send out the reviews afterwards. So a couple more questions we've got time for. And this next one's a little bit of a long one, but when patients have very high fungal burden, e.g. fungus visible in many parts of their bodies, we assume that their gut is leaky, high fungal overgrowth, and importantly, with that very high amount of biofilms. Wondering to what extent the accuracy of the test would be impacted in these cases.
Biofilm, 80% of people that have bacteria issues have biofilm. It's a natural, it's from the NIH. And I wasn't going to go into biofilm if I thought someone was going to ask it. I have a protocol for that in reference to nutrients, but it does affect it in that biofilms typically will, unfortunately, slow down your process. I think so many of patients that have walked in from other functional medicine practitioners who expected it to be 1, 2, 3, and all patients want it done yesterday. They've got it for 6 years. They've lost 40 pounds. Their life has unfortunately been adversely affected, and they expect a button and a pill to fix yesterday. Many of the issues with the continuing leaky gut is the biofilm. And the problem with the biofilm is it just lasts a little longer. As far as the testing is the same. In reference to what we're using at KDMO, but the protocols in my 7R program would be different.
Perfect. Can nutraceuticals become positive on the test?
You mean, can somebody be allergic to a fish oil in a fish? I haven't seen it. I think that's one of the ones that I'll get back to. I'll speak to the CEO, James White. We'll get the lab director, and we'll have a little, hopefully a kumbaya, and I'll get back to you on that.
Yeah, there we go. How do you recommend increasing bile flow?
Taurine, ox bile.
Perfect. How often, I think you answered this towards the end, but how often do you suggest retesting, and how long do you wait before reintroducing food?
Great question. So my reintroduction in food is usually, well, again, everything depicts on where they are as a starting point. So one of the things about the 7R program that I put together, which again is in my book, very simply is fluidity. So somebody may come in and have a little gastrointestinal upset. It may be a month or two. Some people, and I know I hate to say this, could be a year. We all know that autoimmunity at the gut level is not in months. It could be a year. It could be 18 months. That's the most advanced kind of condition that you have. So the fluidity is really going to depict where they are, is going to depict how long. So you're usually looking at the 7Rs. You start with 1, and you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the 7th is more of a maintenance. You're probably going to average around the 6-month period.
That's perfect. We got time for a couple more questions here. What are the right prebiotics, and what do you do if prebiotics cause severe diarrhea?
Well, if prebiotics are causing diarrhea, I'm worried about SIBO, but that's a whole nother test and a whole nother story, maybe for another webinar. Interesting on the prebiotics. That can happen, but that's usually what I think. It's probably going to be more of a small intestinal bacteria overgrowth.
Do you recommend a particular enzyme for those with possible protein digestive issues?
Particular enzyme, protein. Yeah, I'm big on papin and oh my God, hydrochloric acid.
And what do you recommend for someone with Parkinson's disease?
Yeah, I went. There's the tundra.
Yeah.
Obviously, after we tested, we have a definitive. I'm going to work on their gut clearly. I'm going to do some vagus nerve stimulation, both nutritionally via exercise and low-level laser. And now you're going to hear again, I'm going to laser their gut and I'm going to laser their brain, because there's early studies that have shown that using a low-level laser, a class 2 laser, really helps with these kind of neurodegenerative issues.
And then final 2 questions here is do you test in addition for yeast, parasites, opportunistic overgrowth?
On occasion, I do.
Okay, perfect. And the last final question we have, and hopefully but outside of the US, is KBMO available?
Yes. KBMO is available in Britain and some other parts of Europe for sure.
Nice. Okay.
It may even be available in Canada, if I remember correctly.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's somebody from Canada. We have people over in Europe that have questions for that. And what would be their best resource if they do have questions to reach out to?
Feel free to reach out to me, and I'll either answer them or I'll send you on to the science team.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean,
so that you'll get right there.
Perfect. There we go. And I'll share that out, folks. So after this, I'm going to go ahead and walk you through, if you're within the US, how to order this test on KBMO. But if you are located outside of the US and you have questions about ordering, reach out to Dr. Silverman and he'll point you in the right direction. So with that, we are at the hour mark. Dr. Silverman, thank you so much. This has been one of my favorite presentations that I've had the opportunity to sit through. So thank you. Do you have any final notes that you want to get out to the folks?
Yep. Guys, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Remember, Jim Rome once says, take care of your body. It's the only place you have to live.
There we go. I love it. I love the Jim Rome reference. And so with that, y'all, what we're going to do is we're going to transition over to a little bit of a demo on Rupa Health. And I'm going to show you exactly how to order this test on Rupa. I know we're seeing in the chat, how much this test cost. I'll show you all that information. Dr. Silverman, you're welcome to join with us, or you can go ahead and hop off. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump right into the dashboard on Rupa Health. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen first. The first thing I'm going to show you actually is Rupa University. So Rupa, starting from the very top, what we are is we're a functional medicine platform. We're a place not only where you can order from 30 plus labs all in one place, of course, including KBMO, but we're also a place where you can come and learn about these complex tests that are offered on our platform. We offer everything from these live classes. Of course, you're all a part of one of the live classes right now with Dr. Silverman, but we put these live classes out actually with every one of our partners. So you can see everything from Genova to guest speakers that we have come in to Senesco, you name it. And all of this is free content that we put out. And we actually host these on a weekly basis. You can sign up for free, or you can go to Rupa University to watch the recordings. Additionally, beyond that, we even offer paid options. So if you're interested in more of a deep dive, we have some boot camps that we do. We have upcoming Lyme boot camp. We have an upcoming boot camp with Dr. Carrie Jones on the Dutch test regarding hormones, from female hormones, PMS to PCOS. So if you are interested in learning a little bit more about these types of paid opportunities, feel free to check them all out on rupauniversity.com. Now with that, I'm going to transfer over to Rupa Health. So what is Rupa Health? As I mentioned before, we are a functional lab platform. So not only a place where you can come and learn about all these tests, but also a place where you can come and order all these tests. To start an order on Rupa, it's as simple as clicking start an order and knowing your patient's first name, last name, and email address. From there, you just jump right in and you're able to order from any test. So up at the top, you have custom panels that you can create. Down below, you can create a favorites list. And if you're looking for a specific test, let's say I'm looking for that KBMO test, I have a whole catalog down below. All I got to do is type in KBMO. Let's go fit 176 and see what we come up with. And there it is right at the top. Make it a favorites of mine, and we can just go ahead and add it to the cart. And it's that simple. You can see the cost of the tests right here. I can click into the details of that test. So I get everything from the turnaround times. I can get everything from what a sample report looks like, any biomarkers that it's going to go ahead and test. And then from there, all I need to do is click send a patient. And that's how I'm able to order from 30 plus tests or 30 plus labs, over 3,000 different tests all in one place. But of course, I can add more tests to this if I want. So if I'm looking to add a couple more different tests, a GI test to it, a SIBO test, you name it, it's all available right here for you. And if there's an add-on test that you want to add, I know that there were a couple mentioned during that presentation, you can go ahead and add that meal plan on there as well. Now, pricing, the way that our pricing works is very transparent. We actually charge the same exact price that you would be paying if you were working directly with the lab. The way that we generate our revenue is very simple. We charge a 7% processing and ordering fee on each order. Now, what this covers is the entire patient experience that we'll take care of for you. So as soon as I click send a patient, Rupa Health is actually going to reach out directly to the patient. We're going to walk them through how to take the test. We'll handle any support questions that they have. We'll handle any specimen issues that come up. And if it does require a phlebotomy, we can go ahead and help coordinate that phlebotomy with the patient as well. And yeah, so it was $385. So once you place that order, you're actually able to track everything directly through your dashboard. In this dashboard, I can see things such as when that sample arrived at the lab, when I can expect the results were coming in, and I can simply just download the results. And we even integrate with a couple of EHRs. So you can go ahead and have these results sent directly to your Practice Better account, to your Elation account, or your Optomantra account, and many more to come. One of the best things about Rupa Health is not only is it a place where you can come and place all your orders, manage all your results, learn about all these tests, have your patient experience taken care of, it's free to sign up for. So all you do is you go to rupahealth.com, you can sign up for free. All you need to do is all you need to have is an NPI number, and then it takes a matter of just minutes to sign up for. And from there, you'll have access to all of these different labs at your fingertips to be able to not only place your orders, but also learn about all that is offered within the functional medicine space. You can compare tests, you can see all your pricing, you can see what your lab ordering access is available to, and then of course have access to all the different learning materials that we have here at Rupa. So with that, y'all, that is my quick demo of Rupa. But if you do have any questions, I'm going to go ahead and put my information up here at the top. And so I'd love to connect with you. And so if you are interested in setting up a demo to walk through the platform a little bit more, or have any questions for me, or even go through a more detailed demo, I would love to do that with you. So my name is Adrian Martinez. I'm the head of practitioner partnerships here at Rupa Health. And what my role here is to not only just host these webinars, but also to provide just information to y'all and make sure that you're set up for success if you are using Rupa Health. So with that, y'all, I'm going to hop into, I see there's a question here. So I'm an unlicensed holistic practitioner working from home virtually in Rhode Island, in an unincorporated in the state outside of Rhode Island, and one of the 47 states. Yeah. So let's cover a little bit about what we do here at Rupa for practitioners whose licenses may be limiting in their ability to order tests. So I mentioned a moment ago that in order to place an order on Rupa Health, you do need to be a licensed practitioner. What we consider licensed is having an NPI number. Now, licensed varies based on your license type, and that can even vary based on the state, right? And so what we're doing in order to help resolve the issue that we've seen come up pretty often, and that issue being practitioners who are more than capable of helping their patients through functional lab testing aren't able to order those tests because their state doesn't allow it, because their license type doesn't allow it. So we're rolling out a program called Physician Authorization. Unfortunately, it's hit a bit of a snag over the last year or so, but we're happy to announce that it's been fast tracked. We've signed with a partner, and it should be rolled out within the next couple months. And what that program will allow is once you sign up for it, it'll allow you to be able to place orders, even if your license type may be limiting in the ability to do that. And the way that we do that is we have a signing physician on staff who will be the one signing off on requisition forms. So more to come on that, but I'm happy to announce that we are finally heading in a light at the end of the tunnel direction, and it should be available within the next couple even weeks even. So appreciate the question. As long as you're on the wait list, you'll be able to be alerted and sign up as soon as it's available. So when it comes to insurance with these labs, that's another question that we have in the chat. Insurance is tough with these functional labs, as I'm sure if you've ordered the tests before, but what we do provide here is the ability for you to add ICD-10 codes to the order. And so by adding ICD codes to any order, what we'll do is we will work with your patient to go ahead and create a super bill and allow them to submit that to insurance for potential reimbursement. So really important question. But what we'll do is we'll go ahead and walk your patient through the process of creating that super bill to submit that for reimbursement. And so at the end of the day, what Rupa is really providing is a platform that provides education, but also provides you the ability to spend less time on all of the admin work that is required with these tests. So you place an order on Rupa from any lab that you're looking to work with. We take care of the entire patient experience. We'll drop ship the kits to the patient. We'll handle billing with the patient, support specimen issues if they come up, phlebotomy, all those things that would ultimately take time out of your day, right? And then you're alerted as the results come in. Once the results are in, you can upload them to your EHR. You can actually schedule time for a clinical consultation with the lab as well. So if you do need some help interpreting those results, we do have that opportunity here as well. So you're not going to lose any of the functionality that you have working directly with the lab. All you're gaining is the ability to work more efficiently, save more time, and hopefully visit more patients to help grow your business and, of course, help more patients. So with that, everybody, again, my name is Adrian Martinez. I'm the head of practitioner partnerships here at Rupa Health. Here's my contact information. I'll go ahead and reach out to you actually later this afternoon with just a quick follow-up. But thank you so much for joining. And if you are interested in learning more, please check out rupauniversity.com to see all the previous content that we've created and all the content that we have coming up in the near future. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. And thank you so much again for joining us.